You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid. And all that glitters is gold. Only shooting stars break the mold.
Welcome to another episode of the NRL Allstars podcast. Barnesy here, host of the Allstars podcast for the final thought episode, head of round 22. So big round. This one is going to be a couple of real quick topics and just a couple of quick thoughts. So they are weather and also trading, two really popular ones at the moment. Weather-wise, this week, one of the things that I'm pondering, and certainly a final thought of mine when I'm looking at my team, is what am I going to do if it's torrential rain in Sydney all weekend? How do I feel about it? Well, it really impacts Supercoach. It really does pay to have a look at the weather reports. All the Sydney games are basically going to be wet, potentially really wet for some of them. The safe games, the Titans and the Panthers, if you weren't already targeting that one, being on the Gold Coast, that one is going to avoid a lot of the rain. And the Brisbane South matchup, there is going to be some rain that day, but it shouldn't quite hit the game. So it might be a bit wet on ground, but should be okay. Certainly the Warriors matchup against the Dolphins over at Go Media Stadium in New Zealand, that's going to be the driest one. There shouldn't be any rain for that one. So those are the only three that are really safe from the weather conditions. And as we know, the weather's fairly unpredictable. And for Supercoach, it can be a big deal. Like you might be thinking, you know, on Sunday, the Sharks-Cowboys game, the rain should probably ease up by then, supposedly. But then all of a sudden it's torrential and it's the worst weather all weekend. You know, you can't tell with the weather reports sometimes. It's something to keep in mind. Certainly, it's going to be riskier for points sometimes. There's going to be a higher error rate and the game is actually going to be slower. There can be more sets. Less sets, I should say, and less possessions in place, which means less scoring opportunities as well. So things to take into account. Having said that, I wouldn't completely, overreact to it. There still can be huge performances in the rain, as we've seen in the past. Wet head, Nico, is a thing. It is a vibe. It is something that happens every single time it rains in Cronulla, it seems. So it is almost like, well, hey, if Nico's in the wet, Nico's a captaincy choice. So you got to look at it both ways as well. Other thing I was going to touch on as well is trading. So everyone's short on trades at this point. There is no getting around that. And as far as do I use all my trades early or do I save them? It's always better to save if you can. But there is certainly a thought that maybe you just go out all guns blazing and you just peak early and hope for the best with injuries and stuff. A few things to consider, okay? The Storm, just as an example, last season, between round 26 and round 27, they rested half a dozen of their big guns. You know, round 27, you had Pappenhausen take a rest. Round 26, you had Grant, Hughes, and Katoa all rest. That is crucial to consider. Now, when you have second rowers rest, when you have centre wings rest, it's not a big deal. When you have halves or hookers rest, it is massive. If you have no trades, you can be in a world of hurt. I know Hughes is out at the moment, so it's not a real example, but if Hughes wasn't out and you had Hughes and say Harry Grant and you didn't have backup at hooker, you can only take one AE as well, and that's the other thing to consider. You're only going to get one AE. The last couple of rounds of last year, teams were only getting scores of 15 or 16 players because they could only get one AE. They had no trades left, and you end up copying, 15 or 16 runners plus an AE and things like that, and it can be pretty dire. So it does happen every single year at the end. You just have to be lucky if you can avoid carnage. It is a very close race, so that might help. Certainly, if there's other teams vying for the top four, it could be a bit of a push. But at the moment, it does look like that the Storm will probably be able to rest players at the end of the season at some point, and they always do that. So something to keep in mind with your Storm trade-ins. I certainly wouldn't be comfortable using one of my final couple of trades on Harry Grant this week if he's your only hooker. I'd want to have a backup there for a plan for going forward. But look, hey, if you have to make your head-to-head finals and this is a really important week for you, or even if you just decide, hey, I've got massive depth. And this is the other key factor when you're considering using up your trades. We talk about depth all year, and I feel like that we talk about it every single season. But if you've got depth in your squad, you've got options. That's what depth gives you, options and cover. If you only have like one nuff or no nuffs, then all of a sudden you are much more open to being able to just burn your trades in the next fortnight and run home for the last 4 or 5 weeks with none if you need to, because you're a lot safer than other teams. I would always, though, regardless of how many trades that you have left or how much depth that you have, try and focus on those key positions where you've only got 2 options, namely your halfback spot, your 5'8" spot, and also your hooker spot. Even with fullback, you've still got your flex position there with fullback. But look, it's just so important to focus on making sure you've got players and backups in those spots. Duels are even more important. So if you're going to, waste your final couple of trades on a centre wing and a second rower, for example, and you're covered in those other 2 position spots, I think it's a lot easier. So you can certainly consider that. There's good arguments both ways, guys and girls. I'm not going to say one's right and one's wrong, but you're going to have a high chance of running into trouble if you use all your trades right now. But I'll tell you what, I'll let you all in on a little secret. I'm considering using all my trades right now because I'm in about half of my head-to-heads. I'm going to be in the finals, and almost all the other ones I'm fighting to sort of get in that 8th spot. So I'm potentially just going to go for broke this weekend. And what am I going to go for broke with? Well, I'm going to certainly look at the weather reports. I have to say, trading in Harry tonight doesn't look as promising if it's going to pour down in Parramatta. But in saying that, I'll tell you what, trading in some Panthers guns, if it's going to be a dry track on the Gold Coast versus the Titans, that is the target matchup. And that's the one to do it. If you're going to waste some trades and use your final ones, I want to burn them on one where I can get 150 points out of someone and get super lucky. So that's what I'm going to look at. But hey, that's just my thoughts on the weather and also the trading for this week and certainly for the rest of the season. Good luck for the round, everyone. Please make sure that you support the podcast by liking and subscribing, particularly if you can subscribe for me on YouTube, iTunes, and Spotify. It is really helpful. I am writing for Sporting News Australia, as I've told everyone now. Go and have a look at those articles. If you can't find them, search for Mark Barnes Sporting News Australia, and it will come up with my profile and all the articles I've written, or you can just put Supercoach in that Google search with my name and everything, and you'll find all of those articles there. So there's some really good ones. I always do at least one a week that you can find. And our great sponsor is also oneworldcourier.com.au if you or your business has any freight or shipping needs. But good luck for the round. Next week, we'll be back with a brand new episode. Until then, can't wait to talk more footy again with everyone real soon.
You'll never know if you don't go. You'll never shine if you don't glow. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid.